Today's episode is an interview with Dr. Anna Garrett, hormone expert and author of Perimenopause, The Savvy Sister's Guide to Hormone Harmony. I invited Dr. Anna on the podcast because she's a women's health educator and advocate. You're listening to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, a journey-style podcast about my career change from pharmacist to voice actor. I'm your host, Kim Newlove. I alternate solo shows and interview shows. The solo shows are about my career change, and the interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate, educate, or entertain. I specialize in medical narration and e-learning. If you have a project in mind, contact me through my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Thank you for joining me for episode 23. I'll tell you a little more about Dr. Anna Garrett, then we'll dive right into the interview. Dr. Anna Garrett has been a clinical pharmacist for over 20 years and has worked in a variety of practice settings. While traveling her career path, she discovered that working with women in midlife is her true passion. She offers a variety of services, including hormone balancing, weight loss, and health coaching designed to help women in perimenopause and menopause escape from hormone hell and feel amazing in their bodies so they can rock their mojo through midlife and beyond. Dr. Anna is passionate not only about helping women get their hormones balanced, but also about teaching women how to advocate for themselves in the healthcare system. Dr. Anna received her Bachelor of Science and Doctor of Pharmacy degrees from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and is a board-certified pharmacotherapy specialist. She is also a certified intrinsic coach and has studied through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Dr. Anna is the author of Perimenopause, The Savvy Sister's Guide to Hormone Harmony, which was published in April of 2019. Dr. Anna works with her clients virtually and locally. Her website is dranagarrett.com. That's dranagarrett.com. And you can reach her via email at info@dranagarrett.com. Without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Anna Garrett. Hi, Dr. Anna Garrett. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I am great, and I'm so excited to be here to talk to you today.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to you too. We met a few years ago at the very first Metapreneurs conference, and I am so delighted that you are able to be on my podcast today. Now, my guests advocate, educate, or entertain. Can I ask, what do you think might apply to you?
All three. No, actually, mostly advocating and educating. Because in my business, advocating for women's health and educating my clients about their health is really one of my core missions in the business. And hopefully I entertain somewhere along the line.
Well, your book certainly is entertaining, and we will get to that in a little while. So I do think you do check the three boxes, and thank you for being here and contributing all of your knowledge. So let's get right into this. I wanted to know, how did your internet business get started? What's it called? How did it get started?
Cleverly enough, it's dranagarrett.com. Gosh, it's hardly been a linear path. When I was still in pharmacy management at our local hospital, I knew as I was coming to the end of that I wanted to have my own business, which is what created the end of that. My intention had been at that point just to do like life coaching with women in midlife. And then I thought to myself, well, I have this pharmacy degree. Why would I want to not use that? That's not smart. So I went and shadowed a friend who has a compounding pharmacy in Durham, North Carolina. And she was doing hormone consultations. And so I sat in with her for a day. And by the time I walked out the front door of her shop, I knew that was the missing piece for what I wanted to create in my business. And so I added that piece in, educated myself, got some training, and launched Dr. Anna on my birthday, actually, of 2012.
Awesome. Well, that was a great birthday present, huh?
It was.
That's great. Now, I understand on LinkedIn in particular, you have listed your title with your company as Chief Mojo Officer. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So the tagline of my business is rev up your midlife mojo. because what happens to women in midlife is they tend to lose that, that drive and that spark. And that's what I considered to be mojo. And so I am the chief in charge of helping them reclaim that. So that's why I use that title. I think LinkedIn might be the only place I still use that, because I was told by a coach once not to try to be too clever on the title in your business. But I was like, whatever. It makes me smile, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, it's kind of a fun and clever title for sure. And it's kind of eye-catching too. I just wanted to let you know I noticed it and I like it.
Well, thank you.
Now, when did you realize you had a passion for women's health and working with women?
I think I realized that when I was still working at Mission Hospital. So I was the manager of outpatient clinical pharmacy services there. And the disease management program was part of what my responsibility was. And when we created that program at a certain point, we added in health coaching for the employees at Mission. And so there were two of us that did the health coaching, and I was one of them. And I got all the women who were coming in saying, I'm 48, 49, I'm about to turn 50. All this stuff is going on. What's wrong with me? What do I do next with my life? And on and on. And so I was the same age. And, I was having all these things start to go on with my body. And I was like, I need to learn more about this, because this is not something I learned in pharmacy school. So I did some training through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. I went to Pharmacy Compounding Centers of America hormone seminar. And, I just kind of started to pull these pieces and parts together. And I was like, you know what? I can create a business around this. Women in midlife, especially who are having issues with perimenopause, specifically because nobody really recognizes what's going on, are terribly served by the medical community, because their typical medical visit is 7 minutes. If you're looking at productivity in a physician office, where I've also worked. So I'm intimately familiar with this whole productivity thing, and it's not much fun. It's not much fun for the patient. It's not much fun for the provider. So I knew that they couldn't be served really, really well. A lot of doctors don't have any training in hormones. In fact, there was a study that AARP did probably 3 years ago now that looked at OBGYN residency programs and the level of training specifically around hormones that they had. And only 20% of those residency programs had any training about hormones. And of that 20%, most of them had it as an elective. So, it's not the physician's fault that they're not able to really help their patients effectively. It's a function of the way the medical system and the education system is set up. And so I was like, well, shoot, here I am. I'm a pharmacist. I'm getting this knowledge. This is an area that women will pay cash for. So bingo, there's a business. And bingo, there was a business. So that's kind of how I got where I am.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is you really filled a gap. You saw a need and you filled it. And that's a great way to create a business.
Yeah. And since I was my ideal client at the time, the marketing messaging was pretty easy to come up with, because I knew what my clients were searching for. The other really smart thing I did was to create a private Facebook group, which now it's 5 years old and it's got 6,000 people in it. And so it's like this endless source of content for me to write about and talk about. And so it's a never-ending stream of things that I can help people with.
Good for you being able to help them. Instead of being chief mojo officer, would you actually say that your role is to be a menopause expert or a perimenopause expert or a hormone expert or all three?
Now on my business card, it says hormone experts. So I need to go into LinkedIn and change that, which shows you a little bit about how often I'm on LinkedIn, which is approximately never. So now I call myself a hormone expert because people understand what that is. And my specific niche at this point is perimenopause, because there are a lot of lifestyle and over-the-counter things I have at my disposal to help those women. Once we get further into menopause, those women are more likely to need hormone replacement and things that I can't write prescriptions for as a pharmacist. So, I try to stick to, an area where I know I can really have an impact.
Now, how do your patients find you?
Well, my two main ways are Facebook, believe it or not, and referrals from other clients. So those are my two main avenues. Although today I had my first person that told me she found me on Instagram. I was like, oh, Instagram. I pay somebody to do the Instagram for me because I'm like, I have no clue what to do here. But somebody noticed it, so that was really good.
Oh, that's great. Wherever you can find people to connect with, that's where you need to be. So that's just a confirmation that we all need to be on Instagram, all of us pharmacist entrepreneurs.
Well, I think so too. And as somebody who is targeting a perimenopause niche, the Instagram is a good place to find women who are in their late 30s and early 40s. And those are the women I'm really trying to reach. In fact, my social media person today asked me, oh, do you have a Pinterest account? I'm like, yes, I do. And she said, send me the login information. So she's going to start using that more as well.
Would you mind defining perimenopause, menopause?
Sure.
Yep. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. So perimenopause is the entire period from when your hormones begin to change. And that typically is in the late 30s or early 40s. And that is all the way up to menopause. So that period can last 5 to 10 years. And then menopause is just one day of your life. So it's the day that marks a year since your last period. And then everything after that is postmenopause.
When you first started the business on your birthday in 2012, who was your client and who are your clients now? Are they the same or has your clientele evolved?
Well, my first client was my trainer, and my second client was my best friend, and my third client was me. So my clientele has changed. It has gotten younger because I have really, especially since I wrote the book, and the book is specifically about perimenopause. And so those are the women that are coming to me more now. So I would say it's gotten younger, but, it's people, they're all over the world. I have a client in Africa. It just runs the whole gamut. Generally, they're professional women. I'm trying to think, and they're people who really would like to, that they've either been ill-served by the traditional medical community, or they want to have a more natural approach to menopause. Menopause is not a diagnosis. I'll have people post in my group, I was just diagnosed with perimenopause. And I'm like, hold up. Perimenopause is not a diagnosis. There's no ICD-9 code for that, or ICD-10, or wherever we are right now. It's part of a natural transition. And 100% of women will go through it if they live long enough. So for so long, there was no conversation around it. It was just kind of hush-hush. And if your mother didn't happen to mention it, or if, like mine, she had a hysterectomy, that she was no help as far as that goes. And so I like that there are more people now who are willing to, as my friend Shirley Weir, who has a menopause group, says, crack open the conversation, because it blindsides so many women and causes suffering that really is needless.
Good point. I want to talk about your book at this point. It is wonderful. It's called Perimenopause, The Savvy Sister's Guide to Hormone Harmony. We've talked about it a couple of times, kind of mentioned it, and it sounds like in that book, you kind of identify who could be going through perimenopause. Can you tell me about the book, how you came up with the idea, and who it's intended to help?
So it's a project that I threatened to do for 3 years. And then I was at a mastermind retreat, and a friend who was also there was an author coach. And, well, she actually still is an author coach. And finally, we shared a cab back to the airport, and I just looked at her and I said, I want you to help me write this book. And so, she helped me get the outline done. She forced me to give her a chapter every 2 weeks. So I had the accountability there, which for somebody like me is huge because left to my own devices, there would be no book. But I wrote it because I felt like there was really a lack of information about perimenopause specifically. And I wanted it to be sort of like the what to expect when you're expecting version for perimenopause. And so I tried to write it in a way that was really approachable for women who didn't have a medical background. And there's lots of things in there that you can try on your own. There are supplement recommendations. There are lifestyle recommendations. There are, there's information about hormone testing, when to see your doctor, what to be concerned about. So somebody wrote a review on Amazon and said, I wish the information had been deeper. I'm like, it's 150 pages and, I got to have it be not War and Peace. It's got to be readable. So it does kind of scratch the surface of a lot of things, but it creates an awareness for women of, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, I'm not too young. Oh, I do need to educate myself so I can go have a conversation with my doctor. And that was what I really wanted, was for somebody to have not a medical degree, but enough information to be able to go in and sit down with their doctor and really have a heart-to-heart conversation about what they want their experience of that transition through menopause to be like.
Very good. And what age groups did you intend to be reading this book?
So it really is targeted to the 38 to 42-ish women, but here's the problem. Those people don't know that they need my book. And, they're still thinking about, oh, maybe I want to have another baby. And so from a marketing standpoint, that's been my biggest challenge, is getting women to recognize that, oh, perhaps this does apply to me. I've worked with a couple of people on some social media, some Facebook ads, some Instagram, to try to get people's attention and let them know that, yes, indeed, this is coming for you and you do need to know.
When I started reading the book, it talks about a woman who's 37. And I started reading this, I think, when I was 39. I'm 41 now. Would that be right? Maybe 40. I was 40 and reading this, and I thought, oh no, I'm getting this book 3 years too late. So you're absolutely right. Women who are about 35 should really know about this because, like you said, it's like what to expect when you're expecting, except with hormones.
Yeah, the other end of the reproductive spectrum.
Yes, that's a really good analogy. I like that. Have you talked to people who this book has helped?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of feedback are you getting about your book?
Wow, it's been really, really positive. I don't even know how many new clients because of the book, and they'll say to me, I read your book, and I really need more help. I'm trying to think of specifics. Like I recently had a client who read the book, and she lives in Germany, but she's American. And we worked together doing some one-on-one testing and work. And she basically sent me this testimonial with dates of, it took her, I think, 26 days to feel better after she implemented what we had worked on together. So it really has made a difference. And I think it's valuable also because, working with me one-on-one is not inexpensive, but that book is $14 on Amazon, and it can be so helpful as a place to start for women who don't have the resources to go out and seek one-on-one work. There are things that they can do on their own that aren't dangerous and that can greatly improve their quality of life, because that's really what I'm after, is to help women improve their quality of life.
And I'm sure you are. Now, I got to tell you, this book is entertaining. We hinted at this at the very beginning. You are funny.
Well, thank you.
Some of the examples, one of the examples in there kind of reminded me of myself. You were talking about a woman, and I think her husband's name's Dave, and he just wanted to hide because of her mood swings. And my husband, I wouldn't say, has to hide or anything like that. But, we women talk. And when mood swings happen, we talk. And what you have put in this book is truth. And it is kind of funny because we've got to laugh at ourselves. These things really happen. We need to be aware of them. And in the moment, we need to recognize them. And the way that you do it is It's just great. It's entertaining, but it sheds light on what's happening in kind of a fun way. Like, oh, this is something that could really happen, or maybe this has happened to you. I liked
better to
it.
laugh than cry, right?
Yes, yes. So just so you know, I enjoyed your examples. You have real life examples of women. I know you've changed the names and the situations, so they're unrecognizable. You do mention that in the book, but just,
they're all true.
You put real examples, patient cases, as we pharmacists might put it. And I just love that. I really identify with that.
Thank you. Well, when I titled the first chapter, "What is this fresh hell?" that was kind of how I kicked it off. So it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the book.
Yep. It even starts off with a funny title for the paragraph. That's so true. Dr. Anna, you have a very niche practice. How is it helpful to have a niche business?
So this is something I talk with my coaching clients a lot about. So pharmacists tend to want to serve everybody because they're afraid they're going to miss somebody and miss out on an opportunity to help someone. But the problem with that is it makes your marketing messaging really, really hard, because if you're trying to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one, and it's hard to get customers and clients that way. I started out working, and I still do, with all women in midlife, but I found that I was getting the best results with women in perimenopause because of the reason I said, because I have all of the over-the-counter resources at my disposal. I didn't want to get into a situation where I had to do a lot of working through people's doctors to get prescriptions on board and that kind of stuff, because that most of the time ends up putting the patient in the middle, and takes up time. And I just was not really interested in doing that. So I have continued over 8 years to really refine who it is I serve. So most of the people that I work with are professional women. They make a certain amount of money. They are younger in general. They have children who more than likely are in their teens. So they have a little bit more disposable income. And that's important. If you're a pharmacist who's considering starting a business, you have to pick something where you're going to get paid, because if you're not getting paid, you don't have a business. And I say that to people and they kind of get this horrified look on their face, but it's the truth. It's a hobby if you're not making money. And that doesn't mean you have to charge, wildly exorbitant fees, but it's got to be enough to have you feel like your value is being recognized and pay your bills and serve your clients well.
Great answer. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of pharmacist entrepreneurs need to hear that. You have some great comments on that. We want to serve everybody, and having a niche helps you make sure that you are helping somebody.
Well, and it makes it so much easier for you as the entrepreneur to craft the message that you want to get across to your ideal clients. Because not everybody is not your ideal client.
When I started podcasting, my podcast coach actually told me something similar. And he said, you almost want to be able to go to Google Images, find a picture of the person you're talking to, cut it out, and put it in front of you so that you know who you're talking to.
Exactly.
And when you're a business owner, that's the same thing. As a voiceover professional, now I am geared at medical narration and e-learning. So who am I talking to? I know who I'm talking to, people who consume anything medical that's narrated.
Mm-hmm.
I know it seems broad, but really compared to commercials for shampoo and other things, it's pretty niche.
Right, exactly. and it's great if you can start out knowing exactly who you want to work with, but most of the time I find that people haven't quite gotten that far because they haven't had enough experience working with clients to really go, oh, no, not you. And so you have to have some experiences that really make you go, I can't believe I worked with that person, in order to further, define that niche. So it does take time.
Well, I'm going to switch gears here and ask, what is one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome as a pharmacist entrepreneur?
That's a really good question. I think my fear of being seen was probably the biggest thing that I had to overcome, because I was kind of used to being in the background, working in hospital. And so I was not the face of anything. And all of a sudden, here I am, and I am the face of all the things. And I have gotten so much more comfortable with that. I remember like some of the first interviews I used to do, well, I still do videos for YouTube, but the first couple that I did, I finally took off because they were so horrific. They were awful. I was so nervous and so, just focused on how does this look? And I would forget about, I'm here to serve people. I'm not here to worry about what this is going to look like. So one of the best things I did after that video experience was I actually took a video training course, and it was life-changing from my ability to show up in front of a camera and be animated and not so self-conscious. But being seen, I think, was the biggest thing that I have had to overcome. The fear of charging money. There was a little bit of that, but not like some pharmacists. I basically started at a price and I've ramped it up over the years. So it's not like I went from, 0 to 60 all at once. So I had to kind of just feel my way through that. And that's something that pharmacists struggle with a lot.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I think once you realize how long it takes you to do the thing that you're doing, then you realize how much your time is worth.
Yeah. And you see the results people get.
It would be nice if there was a rate guide, but
there's not. So if anybody's looking for that, it doesn't exist. I think pharmacists are really challenged by valuing, really putting a value on what they're providing. What is that service? What is that result worth to that person that you're working with? What is it worth to a client of mine to be able to sleep all the way through the night? What is it worth not to be in front of a group of people giving a presentation and start having a hot flash? What is all of that worth? What are improved relationships worth? And so those are the things you kind of have to think about and get past, what the number is that you're charging, and really be able to speak to the value that you provide.
Wow, you just gave some really excellent examples of challenges people need to overcome during perimenopause.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole list of things out there that people experience in perimenopause, and you just mentioned some. And that's why you've got to read the book, women. You've got to read this book.
I wish I could say I had gotten rich writing a book, but that would not be true. It's not a money-making proposition, but it's a great calling card.
Right. And it's a great way to help people. And
yes, it is.
Yeah, you're doing what you want to do, and that's great. You're reaching your audience.
Yes. It's so fun.
Awesome. On the opposite side of what's the biggest challenge is what's the best thing that's happened since you started your online business, wrote your book, etc.?
I can go anywhere in the world and work. And that's exactly what I wanted to do when I set out to create this business. So I have made it happen. And that, that's a really good feeling, to have a vision of what you want your professional career to look like, and then be able to, even though it's not a linear path, to see that incremental progress toward what you want. I traveled, last year, I think I traveled for like 12 weeks and truly didn't work. And I have it designed exactly like I want it. And there you go. I don't want it to be big. I don't, people talk about building empires. Nope, not interested. I just want my little thing.
That's awesome. Location independence is something that a lot of people want, and you've got it. And we're friends on Facebook, so I've seen it too. You've had some great trips.
I have. Last year was the year of travel. So I turned 60 and I was like, I'm just going to blow it out this year. And it's a good thing I did, because I sure wouldn't be doing that this year.
Yeah, COVID-19's changed the world.
Yes, it has.
Now, if you had to do this all over again, starting a business and whatnot, what's the first thing you would do? Anything you would do differently if you started over?
No, I don't think so. So I didn't do it like a lot of people do, start a business. So the first thing I didn't do was quit working altogether. So I stayed PRN in a coag clinic. In fact, the clinic that I managed. So I did that until May of 2017. So I had some income. So I didn't have to just like totally make the leap. And then the second thing I did right out of the gate, well, there were two things. I hired a virtual assistant because I did not want to have the learning curve of all of the back end of the business, because an online business has a fairly significant number of back end things that make it work. And then I hired a business coach right out of the gate because I didn't want to make all of the mistakes. I wanted to have somebody tell me what they were going to be so that I could avoid that. So most people don't do it that way. But I had enough financial freedom to be able to make that investment to keep me moving down the path without having a lot of roadblocks.
Good for you investing in yourself. There's a lot of people that won't do that. And I like that you're telling people that was a good thing that you did. Now, on a similar topic, having a business coach comes with all this great advice that you get to take in. Can you tell me one of the best pieces of advice somebody's ever given you?
So I have had a lot of great advice from various people, but I think the one thing that I was advised to do that has had the most impact was to start a private Facebook group for people who were potentially my clients. So now I have one place to go on Facebook that's got 6,000 women in it that I've curated and put together, and it has its challenges from time to time. And I have 4 other moderators who are in there with me, kind of keeping order. But it's been a great source of clients, and it has allowed me to, as I mentioned earlier, have it like an endless stream of content. So that was a good piece of advice. And then also to niche down as much as I could to make my messaging easier.
Great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. Now, can you tell me, I know you've said that you've had business coaches or a business coach. Have you ever been to a mastermind group, or have you ever found that networking played a part in developing your philosophy on how you do business and you're niching down?
So I have been in mastermind groups since the very beginning of my business. I am not currently in one. I'm working one-on-one with a guy who pretty much specifically works with health coach types of people. And he doesn't have a mastermind. Networking, networking is not my jam. It just isn't. And I have attempted on various occasions to go to, I went to eWomen Network. I've been to local networking things. Some friends and I actually started a networking group here, but we just never got any traction. And it's not mine to do, which is fine. And actually, it is fine because most of my clients, I think I have one local client right now, and that's it. And so I rarely, if ever, have a local client. And I've met some great people at the things I have gone to. Like I met a pelvic floor physiotherapist in town, and she and I have done some things together. So I can't say that it was not useful to any degree, but it just is sort of feels like one more thing to do. And I don't want one more thing to do.
I hear you. Time is precious, isn't it? That's why you hired a business coach right off the bat.
Exactly.
You want to level that curve, that learning curve. Absolutely.
Flatten that curve.
Yes. I have heard that so many times, and that's true. If you go to private coaches or you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and is already doing something like what you're doing, just even having a business, you get to find out what are those struggles that they've had? What are those dragons that they've already slayed? When you're just starting out, those things that you think are big things are somebody else's little things because they've been there and done that.
Exactly.
Now, talking about coaching, I know you mentioned to me when we were talking before the interview started that you actually have something new going on, and you are coaching pharmacists and pharmacist entrepreneurs. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have a program now called Startup to Success. And I work with pharmacists who are in startup to help them get the basics of their business in place and craft their messaging, help them with copy for website. It's customized based on their needs. So for me to give you a bullet point list of everything, it includes would be wrong because I don't have that. Basically, I meet with my clients twice a month. We set goals. We have the to-do list. They go forth and do good, and I hold them accountable. I help a lot with mindset blocks because when you're in startup, they're coming fast and furious. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of my work.
You have such a wealth of knowledge to share, though, because you're so far down the line. I think that's wonderful. You've opened yourself up for coaching clients. How would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to for your coaching service?
I have a page on my website, the URL of which escapes me at this point, but I can always be reached at info@dranagarrett.com.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Now, when it comes to mindset, did you ever have any imposter syndrome, like that little voice in the back of your head that said, pharmacists don't do that. You can't do that. Tell me about that.
I still have it occasionally. Yeah, it's just, the gremlins leap up every now and then, and they go, who are you to do X, Y, and Z? And the answer to that is, well, who am I not to do X, Y, and Z? That is very definitely something that pharmacists run into because I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to who go, well, I need to go get a master's degree, or I need another certification, or I need some more letters after my name. And you don't. You just need to be able to help people. And all your client cares about is whether or not you can do that. They don't care how many certifications you have. And that need to get one more thing is another form of procrastination. So what I tell people is just start. If you see that you need more training in a certain area, then fine. But as pharmacists, we have a pretty broad range of things that we are trained to talk to people about. And the one that really trips pharmacists up is nutrition, which to me is just so interesting because so many medications are indicated as an adjunct to lifestyle and diet. And, we learn that stuff in pharmacy school. No, we're not nutritionists, but that's what Google is for. So I just tell people, start. Find somebody that needs help and help them. Now, having said that, I enrolled in the School of Applied Functional Medicine a couple of years ago because I really wanted to learn more about the functional approach to chronic disease so that I could help my clients in a broader way. So I'm still in that. And I don't know that I'll ever finish the certification because I'm not really after that. I'm after the learning and not the letters.
I think you'll be able to help plenty of people without a piece of paper.
And it's great. I mean, it's so fun, and there's so many more pharmacists in it now that it's actually a really great group, and it's a great program.
What's one thing about pharmacist entrepreneurship that people don't realize?
That we haven't gotten the training to do 75% of what has to be done. You can hang out your shingle one day and start practicing, but there's a lot, especially in an online business, there are just all these moving pieces and parts in the background if you want to be efficient, because otherwise you get bogged down in things if you don't have systems to support you. People probably don't realize how much work it is and how much marketing they're going to have to do and how ill-prepared in many ways we are to do the marketing piece of it.
That's true. You got to bone up on that. You got to look at books or talk to a coach or find somebody who does know about it and listen to them. I don't know about you, but one of the big mantras I've had ever since becoming an entrepreneur is find people you trust and listen to them because they know what they're talking about.
And there are plenty of ways to waste money on marketing. So that's a huge sinkhole if you let it become one. And so, yes, listening to people who have had success is a really smart idea.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I enjoyed when I went to the metapreneurs conferences. When I met you, we had this thing on Sunday morning. I can't remember what it was. It was like you go around the room like a clock, and there's different topics on the tables, and there's a topic, you could write in your answer or talk to a representative from whatever topic it was, websites, insurance, marketing. And what I found really valuable was talking to everybody, including you, about your experience, things that you did wrong, not trying to point you out or anything, but I want to know what could go wrong here.
It was called Choose Your Own Adventure.
choose your own adventure. I want to know what could go wrong because I don't want to make a mistake. And I tend to go negative sometimes, but everybody paints a picture of, oh, it's so great when you're an entrepreneur, but I want to know, like, how am I going to screw this up? And if I can ask a real human what they did wrong and they're vulnerable enough to tell me about it, that is worth its weight in gold. So thank you for everything you've ever shared with me. If there's anything that you would like to share with my listeners about, things about pharmacist entrepreneurship that they may not realize, this is a great time to share that.
So I would say, this just popped in my head. If you want to start a business, do it because you really want to start a business, and don't do it with the expectation that you're going to replace a pharmacist's salary in the first year or maybe even the first 3 years, because you probably won't. And that's not to say that you're doing anything wrong. It's just, it takes time to build a business and you have to be patient. And if you are not in a position to be able to afford to do that, don't quit your day job. Just start something on the side and build from there, because that's what I did. It took me 5 years to actually fully step away from the hospital.
That's great advice. There's a lot of pharmacists out there that are looking for other opportunities, and entrepreneurship, of course, is something that they want to consider. But when you talk about replacing income, that's one thing that you definitely need to consider. I'm sure it's on other pharmacists' minds, but thank you for bringing it up because it is, of course, important. I hear about all these people with student loans and they want to do something different. And you got to think, can I replace my income? Do I have time for this? And talking to pharmacist entrepreneurs will really open your eyes. It's a hustle. It's a grind. You want to do the job, though. I mean, every day I wake up, I'm excited about what I do. And that's different from going out to work for somebody else. So can you address that whole passion piece? I mean, how excited are you about what you're doing? Does that really set you on fire when you wake up in the morning and propel you forward?
It does. I know it's going to sound like it doesn't, but just having the freedom and flexibility, I mean, that really sets me on fire. I'll be honest. I mean, after doing the same thing for 8 years, I'm always looking for like the next product that I can create or program that I can create because as I've told you before, I have the attention span of a gnat. And I get bored very easily. So I am always trying to figure out a different way to make it exciting for me, because I want that to come across to my clients. But I don't do well in a situation where I'm doing the same thing day in and day out. So I try to mix it up as much as I can, and I keep learning because I'm a lifelong learner. I mean, there's no doubt about that. My husband's like, "Why are you still doing all?" Yeah, I'm like, "Because I want to, because it's interesting. Because I like to learn."
Great mindset. Going back to the whole metapreneurs thing, I just want to make sure to tell the listeners that you are one of the 3 co-founders of the Metapreneurs Conference, which started in 2018, correct?
Yes.
Yes. You, Sue Paul, and Michelle Fritsch. And I've had the good fortune of interviewing all 3 of you now. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to say anything you'd like to about the Metapreneurs and maybe how it could help another pharmacist entrepreneur or healthcare entrepreneur get started.
Sure. So I'm not part of the core Metapreneurs team anymore. I bought a vacation rental business, and that was pretty much the end of the room on my plate. But I would say if you want to connect with like-minded pharmacists and begin to learn about what is possible, it is an excellent opportunity. It's a small group of people. I think the biggest one we had was 100 people. And then this year, obviously, things went off the rails. And so a lot of it's being done virtually. But Sue and Michelle are great resources for connections and help and cheerleading and all of the things that it takes to really feel like you have somebody in your court, because that's super important. Metapreneurs has a variety of people who speak at it, and they're experts in coaching and marketing. And I think the keynote speaker this year was to be somebody who talked about stage presence. I know what ended up happening with all that if she was able to do her presentation virtually. But it's been a great experience for me to be a part of the organization of it, and also to be a participant and meet all of you guys and get to know you, and be able to answer questions and see people begin to fly on their own. I mean, we've had people who showed up at the first year and now they have, full-fledged, real life businesses, and they're out doing their thing. And there's nothing more fun than watching people do that.
I agree. Well, Dr. Anna Garrett, before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you haven't had a chance to say yet that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so. I would like your listeners to know that if they have an idea and they're passionate about it, to not worry about the how. All you need to really know is the what and the why, and the how will show up, because people will show up to help you if you allow that to happen. So don't ever feel like you're in a vacuum, because there are people out there who are happy to get on board and help push you in the direction you want to go.
Well said. Thank you so much for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Take care, Dr. Anna.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me for episode 23 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Visit thepharmacistvoice.com to subscribe and read the show notes. That's thepharmacist with an S, voice.com.